When it manifests, the being reveals itself full of understanding. Intelligence, in trying to organize this inner mechanism, domesticates the nature of perception, adjusting and consequently, limiting its levels, according to the required adaptation. The being is already endowed with automatic synapses, oriented toward communication. The acknowledgement of collective perceptions only confirms the existence of information as something available to everything and everyone, simultaneously. When there are distinct perceptions about a given phenomenon, or even absence of perception by someone, this results from interruptions in the synapses. If such interruptions did not exist, everyone would have unrestricted access to everything. There is a reason why, for certain beings, this communication was interrupted. This rupture led intelligence to develop mechanisms capable of overcoming disconnection, allowing the being to re-establish access to communication with others. Language is one of these mechanisms, ingeniously conceived. Although it is propagated that the domestication of sounds and images facilitated knowledge, what actually occurred was the opposite, that is, simplification reduced the breadth of perception, restricting access to the totality of information. The domestication of anything impoverishes knowledge, as it imposes limits on natural capacities. Art arises as a response to limitation, as an almost inevitable need to create new forms of expression, in the face of the loss of communicative spontaneity. Rhetoric, considered one of the 7 great arts, arises precisely from this limitation and rupture with natural expression. Grammar and mathematics, in turn, emerge as auxiliary instruments of understanding, attempting to make up for the absence of intuitive and direct perception of things. The various sciences that attempt to explain creation prove to be as conformist as religions. Natural understanding, by its very essence, dispenses with any need for explanation, since it is inherent to every being, manifesting without mediation. The arrogance present in the domestication of power corrupted the naturalness of things, and with it, continuously widens the abyss of separation between the being and its origin. To speak, in this created world, seems to be a fundamental necessity. However, what is transmitted are the invisible bars that imprison the being, in a universe where the end repeats itself incessantly, in the paradox of an infinite that unravels at every instant. The being seems to domesticate its own consciousness, but in doing so, it dulls its essence, and reduces access to the natural science that inhabits it. The values attributed to achievements are magnified and perpetuated. In creation, the being, originally conscious and full, is domesticated, loses access to its naturalness, and inherits, from the unconsciousness of the inhabitants, the weight of incapacitated and incapacitating generations. It is through these pseudo-teachings, originating from the domesticated, that the savage is led to civilizations. Natural knowledge, by its essence, is eternal, and can never be domesticated. At some point, a crack opens in the being through which knowledge pours forth. For many, civilization hastens to staunch this flow, fearing its transformative power. For a few, however, the escaping light becomes unstoppable, in a revelation that transcends imposed limits. The legend of the Tower of Babel hides this profound truth. Domestications caused the rupture of the being with its own essence, fragmenting the original unity into multiple voices and scattered consciousnesses. The manifested being seems to have encapsulated and interrupted the natural manifestation of the being itself. Still, hindering access to the essence does not represent a true obstacle, for the being, in its nature, remains intact, silent, waiting. Since the beginning of creation, the only connection truly lost is that of the being with itself. Any faith that does not start from this principle of reconnection is foolish and harmful, for it distances the being from its own origin. Flee from idols, and from those who spread them. The being itself is that only way. It is that only truth. And it is that only life.